Hey friends, so I wanted to touch base to go over a couple of things. Firstly, I just want to highlight for you all some important dates that are coming up. This is the time in the semester where we start to wind down, and assignments and exams and projects tend to start piling up, and everyone is kind of like doing one of these. I want to just outline for you some important dates that we have coming up in this class so that you're all on track. You know what is expected of you, and there are no big surprises, and you can plan accordingly. I've already emailed all of this to you, but I want to just sort of talk through it so that again, if you have any questions or any issues, you can be in touch with me as soon as possible so we can iron out whatever we need to iron out so that you can be successful come the end of the semester. So, firstly, our last short writing assignment will be on April 28th. Okay, so towards the end of the month, that will be on Hawthorne's piece, Young Goodman Brown. I will probably ask you to pair it with another text that we've read, but I'm going to give you a couple of options to choose from, and all of them will be within the latter half of the semester. So the focus will be on Young Goodman Brown, but in order to maximize your practice in examining two texts from a critical and comparative perspective, we will be putting it in conversation with another text. And I'm just going to give you maybe two or three options of what you can discuss in relation to Hawthorne's work. You can be a little bit strategic about short writing 3. We do complete 3 short writing assignments as per our syllabus instructions. However, I typically tend to drop your lowest grade out of 3 and average the other two higher grades. So if you've already taken, short writing assignment 1 and 2, and you feel good and confident about your grades, short writing assignment 3 may be one that you want to skip. It is a hectic time of year. You can be a little bit strategic about it. However, if you have missed any of the other short writing assignments, or if you feel like there's room to improve in your former 2, then you definitely want to make sure that you complete this assignment and that you do your best work so that you can bump up that portion of your grade. Okay, so April 28th, your last short writing assignment. If you need to make any accommodations, I know there's like a big test around that time in Orgo, which oh my God, Orgo. Ooh. Anyway, if you need to switch that day, I'm typically letting people also complete it on the 27th or the 26th. So be in touch with me ASAP if you need some kind of accommodation, and I will work with you on that. Okay, after that, we have a week of writing prep. Okay, so much like we did for our midterm assignment, we will be taking some time, taking some days to focus on composing, editing, rethinking, restructuring, workshopping our final essays. Okay, writing is not something that just happens. You don't just poof, a final paper emerges that is flawless. It would be awesome if that's how it worked, but it doesn't. Writing is a process. We have to work at it. We have to really do our best to examine our own work, which is hard to do because we're very attached to it. We've put in time and energy and effort. We don't want to let go of even one little word. But it is an important part of the writing process to give yourself enough time to really think through what you want to say, to provide yourself with some kind of detailed outline, potentially, if that works for you, to write a draft or two, if that works for you. And certainly, at the very least, we're going to be doing another thesis workshop where we'll be posting our introductory paragraphs, our thesis statements, and providing each other with some pointed, constructive feedback. I will be providing you with feedback as well in order to make sure that you all have really solid, grounded, analytical thesis statements that are going to be firm anchors for your final essays. Those final essays are a little bit longer than the midterm, so instead of 3 to 5 pages, you're working with 5 to 7 pages and a separate works cited page. I've sent around a sort of sample midterm paper that you can all look at to use as a kind of model, and I've highlighted certain issues that I saw when evaluating your midterm papers, things to really be mindful of. I'm going to post another video in another week or so reviewing all of those so that you are all very well prepared for your final essays, as prepared as you possibly can be. So be on the lookout for that. That should be coming within the next week or so, to use also as a resource to help you prep. So from May 2nd to the 5th, that is going to be our writing week, our thesis workshop week. So be prepared for that. That's the time to really be asking me any questions, ironing out anything in your papers that you're unsure of. And then your final essays are due on May 6th by 5 p.m. You're going to upload them as per usual under the assignments tab. I will be posting final paper prompts this weekend, probably tomorrow. So you'll have a little bit of time to look through them. It'll be very similar to the midterm. I'll outline a couple of major themes that we've been discussing and give you some questions and help you start to pair potentially some interesting texts in relation to one another to kickstart some ideas. So be on the lookout for that as well this weekend so that you can start really thinking through, which theme speaks to you and also, which texts you've really kind of gravitated towards. This will be in your instructions for your final essays, but I want to also highlight the fact that you can write on any story that we've read throughout the course of the semester. However, one of the stories that you need to focus on for your final essay needs to be within the latter half of the semester. So after the midterm on, one of them has to be from the latter half of the semester, and you cannot write on a story that you covered in your midterm paper. Okay, so one of the stories that you choose needs to be from the latter half of the semester. You can pair that with something earlier in the semester, as long as you are writing on two texts that you did not cover in your own midterm paper. Okay, that is the specific rule for the final essays. Okay, last announcement is that as this is a holiday weekend, we're celebrating Passover, Easter, I'm going to extend our current discussion forum to Monday morning. It will close at 10 a.m. So instead of making sure that you post before 9 p.m. tomorrow night, you can post up until 10 a.m. on Monday morning, okay? And I will be posting new questions as per usual for our next set of readings Monday morning as well. That doesn't change, but I'm just going to give you the extra night, essentially, so that you can celebrate with your families and not stress about it, and also so that we can all watch Game of Thrones in peace. And if you don't watch Game of Thrones, I really don't even know what to say. Like, there are no words. At the end of this semester, when all your work is submitted, you have to just go back to the beginning, and you have to go back to the beginning. Please do not even try to jump in now. No, go back to the beginning, and you gotta just watch it. It's gonna be, your life is gonna be over for a couple of weeks, but it's also just gonna be beginning because it's just incredible. So our current discussion forum will extend until Monday morning at 10 a.m. That is the most important thing that you need to know, not Game of Thrones, but also Game of Thrones. Okay. So this week we've been talking a lot about the sort of inherent systematic racism at large in this particular country. We started with Baldwin and looked at Erdrich, both of whom write stories about male figures, young, male figures, one who is a Native American in Erdrich's work, one who is an African American in Baldwin's work. There's a lot of interesting resources under the resources tab for this week, interviews with some of these authors. There's a really cool YouTube video of Jamaica Kincaid reading Girl herself out loud, which is just another way to experience some of these works. To hear an author in an interview answering questions, to hear an author reading his or her own work um, really helps to enhance the reading experience, and really also helps to enhance your understanding of some of these stories. So right now we're reading Kincaid's Girl, which is really one of my favorite pieces, although it is, it's a unique piece in terms of its structure and its delivery, as we've started to unpack a little bit in our forum thus far. This is sort of this, like one sentence monologue, essentially, like one breath monologue of a mother instructing her daughter on how to behave and also how to function in a particular world, given the mother's and the daughter's specific cultural, historic um, relationship in their specific culture. So, it's important to note that, for Kincaid, she was born in the West Indies. She was born in Antigua. At the time, Antigua, she was born in 1949, and Antigua was under British control from the 1600s until the early 1980s. They had a very strong slave trade. Slaves were brought there to sort of work the land, and so a lot of the descendants, more contemporary descendants, were descendants of slaves. And this helps to contextualize this monologue from the mother to the daughter, because it's not just, any American mom sort of telling her daughter, do's and don'ts of proper behavior or proper etiquette, or what to do when you like a boy, or what to do when a boy likes you, or what to do when you're in a situation where you may be in danger in some capacity, whether that's emotional or physical or sexual. This is specifically an African American mother speaking to her daughter about how to work and how to behave herself and how to make a good impression on people, whether those are her employers, whether those are her friends, whether those are any kind of superior to her. And so it does have, as some people have noted, like it has a sort of kind of harsh and intimidating and almost like desperate tone to it. Rebecca observed, like it's almost as if this mother is imparting, all of this wisdom onto her daughter in order to prepare her to succeed in the world, given her own position in it. And it does have that sort of flavor to it. It does have that sort of tone to it. And so it is important to keep that, particular angle in mind when, reading through. It wasn't as if this mother was just trying to be cruel to her daughter, though it is important to recognize that it is primarily the mother's voice and the mother's instruction that demands attention and takes over this particular monologue. The daughter is able to interject, on only 2 occasions, and that's it. Otherwise, she is silenced. Her voice and her perspective are silenced. And so that too is something important to consider. And it'll be interesting to sort of unpack the ways in which the mother-daughter relationship in this particular piece, as we've also started to do, compares in certain ways to the mother-daughter relationship in Tan's piece, in Two Kinds, just to see the ways in which the generations and the varying cultures, where you have 2 separate mothers born not in the United States and 2 daughters who were and are, by all intents and purposes, part of the American culture and mainstream, how the tensions between those 2 perspectives resonate and how they end up getting enacted in different ways. And resolved in different ways if we want to make that claim when looking at the two stories in particular. And then we have a really, really contemporary piece by Jocelyn Nicole Johnson called Control Negro, which is also a sort of in this case we have sort of like a letter from a father, a biological father, to his biological son, though we learn that he has not been directly involved in his son's life. Johnson, I have a link to her website which is always cool. I mean, this is a really contemporary young African American writer, female writer who was just published in, like, this piece is actually published in the Best American Short Stories from 2018. So it's cool to take, two different pieces. You have Girl, which was published in 1978 in the New Yorker, and a really, really modern piece published, in this last year in Guernica magazine, which is a really important modern journal for politics and literature and art, to take these two pieces and kind of put them into conversation with each other, even though they are coming from different purviews and different perspectives. Both of them, along with Erdrich's piece, along with Baldwin's piece, are really talking about the sort of alienation that one feels living in a society, in a culture that privileges whiteness, that privileges being male, right? And those perspectives and those voices are the ones that are typically and traditionally heard. But what about those who fall outside of those identities? What happens to them? And in Control Negro, we actually get this disturbing social experiment, essentially, where this father, though he isn't directly involved in his son's life, really does, as an academic, conduct this type of social experiment where, what if you take, a young African-American boy and you give him all of the resources that one could possibly need in order to, in theory, succeed in this country, such as financial support and love and education, friendships, etc., access to basic necessities and beyond. What if you can provide all of these resources and the system still somehow doubts them? The system still, simply in making a call and saying, like, hey, there's an African American kid outside of a bar causing an issue, how there are no questions asked, right? And how this particular individual is alienated and made into an example, even if he is innocent. And we see a lot of these. This is not something, of course, none of these stories, and especially this most recent one by Johnson, I mean, none of these stories are written in a bubble. They all come from a particular social, historical, cultural place and time, political place and time. And so those values get enacted in these pieces. And we can really, really see the sensitivity of a lot of these issues, the prevalence of a lot of these issues still being inherent dilemmas in our culture, in our society today. So it's important, actually, to read these sort of pieces as their own social commentaries on our culture. Just not because we're not aware of these issues, but to see these issues come to the forefront in different, in a sort of different vehicle through short fiction, is fertile ground to really start to try to think through some of these deep-seated, inherent systemic issues that we still, as a society, as a culture in America today and globally, face. So I hope we can unpack some of these issues in both of these pieces in our discussion, in our current discussion. So you have until Monday to post, but I would do it sooner if you can. And please also, of course, take note of those dates that I highlighted for you in my email and also at the beginning of this message. And be in touch with any questions, should you have them. And yeah, we are winding down, friends. Just buckle up, hang in there, do some yoga. We're almost there. Okay, talk soon. Bye.